Every year, billions of public funds move through African governments, roads, schools, hospitals. But one question always matters: where does the money go? Across Anglophone Africa, a system was built to answer that question. A system rooted in law, oversight, and accountability. Today, that system is entering a new era: digital public financial management. From South Africa to Ghana, Kenya to Rwanda, governments are using technology to track public money and deliver better services to citizens. In South Africa, digital reform began with one critical area: public procurement.
So looking back at our journey, we had disparate systems, and it wasn't easy for suppliers to enter and to do business with government. There were these barriers, and technology just came and broke that down. It was easy for a young entrepreneur or a new business to enter to try and do business with government.
Government contracts move billions every year. For decades, the process was slow and complex. Today, the process is moving online.
In South Africa, we have two key systems. One is the Central Supplier Database. The other one is the e-tender portal. With the Central Supplier Database, it's a digitized platform where all suppliers are able to register and manage their affairs in terms of doing business with government. And then on the other hand, the e-tender portal is a centralized platform where all organs of state in South Africa are publishing tenders. So that platform primarily makes tenders available to everyone, including to the supplier community.
Digital platforms track every stage from tender announcement to contract award, creating a clear audit trail.
Currently in the country, we publish all procurement contracts, and this starts from all the bid adverts, the winning bidders, those that are unsuccessful. We take it to an extent whereby we even publish how much have we paid to each and every supplier that is doing business with the state. So any citizen can go out to our website, check and search for a particular supplier and see how much were they paid by any organ of state. And we also supplement this by bringing in open contracting data standards so that we can be able to allow researchers and civil society to download procurement data and analyze it in a more efficient way. So that's one way that we are dealing with transparency, and also to ensure that the public can hold us accountable in terms of how we are spending the state's money in public procurement.
The key successes is being able to save government a lot of money. I think the last figures we saw, it's 300 million rands annually in terms of tender publications. Previously, you would have publications happening in the newspapers and so forth, and government would have to pay. Now with this new platform, government does not pay, and it's a lot more centralized, easy to use and flexible. So that's the one point on savings. And the second one is on making government opportunities available to suppliers. So we've been able to do that through our legislation as well as the technology itself. We're making sure that our suppliers know where to find the government opportunities, as well as the government opportunities themselves must be there. So on the supplier side, we've been able to have a more centralized supplier registration process, which meant it's easier for suppliers. Instead of registering with each government component, you have one registration that allows you to transact with multiple organs of state. So it saved suppliers a lot of resources, a lot of money, and it makes it easier to do business with the state.
From a service delivery perspective, what we have managed to accomplish is to bring supply and demand together. It is as simple as going onto an electronic platform, entering your criteria and finding somebody in your area that can provide those goods and services to your department.
Now the system is evolving further, using data analytics and AI to detect risks and strengthen oversight.
We're looking at new technologies that are emerging, AI, Internet of Things, big data, cloud. So these are some of the technologies that we're going to be infusing in terms of our e-procurement strategies. We've also completed a strategy on EGP, So our EGP implementation will also commence. However, we won't be starting at ground zero because we've implemented so much. So in essence, take the shape of convergence, maybe converging the two products and also looking at where are the gaps within the two products and making it a complete end-to-end procure-to-pay type of solution.
In Ghana, the conversation goes beyond the system itself. It begins with a deeper conversation. What makes digital reform possible in the first place? Strong systems do not begin with software. They begin with people, skills, and the education system that produces problem solvers.
Homegrown solutions come from building very good skill. Skill comes from education, getting people to be able to understand how the world is evolving. Skill evolves over time. It means that we need to have very strong education systems. It means that we should be able to understand the issues that we have. Change management is part of growing. So as much as we want to go into a lot of homegrown solutions, it means that we should have the capacity. We should understand what the issue is. So it is not just going there to say, I'm doing something. It's what you are doing. Would it fix the issue? Would it be something that you can even maintain? You have the skill to actually build this.
Ghana's perspective reminds us that strong public finance systems are built on strong national foundations: electricity, connectivity, infrastructure, and institutional capacity.
In government offices, sure, you could have networks sent to government offices, but then if you want to improve transparency, accountability, that means that you are going to the level of having citizens to be able to access some of these platforms. We talk about dashboards and others. If there is no good networks, there is no infrastructure to be able to hold some of this. You do this, it's like lighting a candle and putting it under a bed. It's supposed to be out there to be bright for everybody to see.
Without the right policies, even the best infrastructure cannot function effectively. And it is not the government alone that makes reform work. Private sector participation, partnerships, and collaboration all help turn digital ambition into practical progress.
Government cannot do everything. So when it comes to network infrastructure, there should be a policy where the private sector is able to take on some of this drive, where they're able to extend networks to certain areas. If you build very good digital systems, which might need web access, it means that definitely there is the need for someone to provide that network.
In Namibia, a wider African question comes into focus. Can digital systems help countries overcome long-standing challenges such as corruption?
Obviously, the issue of corruption is something that is very difficult to tackle because it comes in different aspects. Some form of corruption comes in the form of collusion. So the very same people that you trust with the system or to run the systems are the ones that will corrupt the system. But that is very difficult. But if you have a watchdog outside the main system that are independent, that are able to tackle that, I think that really helps improve that significantly.
The answer lies not only in technology, but in the strength of institutions, the clarity of processes, and the credibility of policy and legal frameworks. But reform also depends on people. Africa has the skills to build and run its own systems. The challenge is whether countries are prepared to invest in local talent, connect graduates to national priorities, and rely less on outsourced solutions.
We have sent people to schools. We have universities that are graduating people in the field of science and technology every year. But where these people go, I don't know. We employ them, yet we outsource from foreign, for instance. Then what that means is we deprive our own people right to learn more. So I believe that if we capacitate our very own people, I think we will be able to get quality out of these people.
Kenya brings the story closer to citizens, showing that digital finance is not only about systems, it is about public value.
As systems come to be,
there has to be the political will to support any solution that is developed. So as Africa, as Kenya, we have borrowed the lessons from already existing system. In Rwanda, Kigali, they have developed this kind of solution, and this has been successful because of the political support from the government, because all their solution is in-house, and this in-house is actually supported by the government.
But public value requires public participation. Civil society organizations play a crucial role in leveraging digital systems to strengthen citizen oversight and demand accountability.
Technology is evolving, and it evolves every day. And in terms of evolvement, Africa is in the right trajectory to implement the ICT solution that are geared towards improving their accountability, because we are working towards making sure the life of citizenry is improved, and also we are looking at sustainability of most of the solutions that are there in Africa.
In Rwanda, digital public finance supports a broader national vision of a modern, coordinated government.
These systems, the digital PFM systems we are talking about, it is not only about systems. This is the systems that are just delivering on our strategic vision. For example, I would say for us we have a national strategy for transformation, and everything that we need from these systems should deliver to our strategic documents. So it's something that should be embedded in our development agenda, not only systems. But of course, to implement this, we need government will, leadership will. That's a critical thing. And we need infrastructure to have these systems functional. And we need to build capacity.
Financial systems connect directly to sectors like health and education, ensuring integrated service delivery.
Our political perspective is to view IFMIS as a subset of the entire e-government. You understand? Where do you get money from? You are getting money from citizens who are paying their taxes, who are paying for services. Therefore, you should look at this as providing service to citizens in exchange of money they are going to pay you.
In Malawi, the conversation shifts from how systems work to who owns their future.
What I've also found it timely in this space is that most of the stories that were highlighted, most of the case studies that were highlighted are from countries that have shared within the workshop were systems that have been driven by in-house solutions. You know, most of the stories from Rwanda, the progress on Kenya, even from the civil society perspective, these are solutions that are being developed in country.
Africa cannot fully transform digitally using systems whose data, direction and power are controlled elsewhere.
As governments, we are dealing with debt issue challenges, we are dealing with resource mobilization challenges, and at times, you know, these digital systems are expensive, licensing is expensive, skill sets is a challenge. But to learn that from the other countries, they are able to do this and they have the skill sets that are required, and investment is being made to drive this. I feel this is a timely initiative.
Too much of the data moving through digital systems is still not owned or controlled by Africa.
If you look at the data, where do we spend much of our data into as an African? You find it's on applications, it's on systems that are not being driven by Africa. You are spending a lot of data, your own personal data, on Facebook, on TikTok. You find all that is not a space that is driven by Africa. We are sharing emails through Gmail. That is not something that is being driven by Africa. So I think we are missing platforms, e-commerce platforms that can connect us, Africa to Cairo as one in Africa. So yes, as Africa, we have the potential, but currently we need to have more conversations around this so that we can be able to drive digital systems as a continent together.
Digital transformation must bring Africans together. It is about shared systems, shared innovation, shared digital identity, and shared markets.
Governments need to understand the population demographics and to understand that the needs of the population are different along the life cycle. So in order to develop a PFM system as well, it's important to understand what are the needs of the population, where they are, and how is best, not only to channel the funding, but also the accountability mechanisms to ensure that there is quality of services. Another area that is very important is to provide the data and being transparent. Civil society and different organizations, groups cannot engage if government does make the budget data that is accessible. And digitalization would be very important because now many people in the fingerprints, with a cell phone, are able to read and understand, where the governments are putting the funds, and also maybe even asking some questions sometimes, Are these money benefiting? Where are, the quality for the schools? Are we having enough health centers? Are we having enough teachers being hired? And are social programs, being there in place effective to complement a lot of the social sectors?
In our research at ODI, we identify 3 shifts in mindset or in approach that we think are essential to unlocking the capability of PFM to actually drive benefits for the people. One is a shift in how governments think about PFM or PFM reforms. So really a shift in mindset, which is to not see PFM as mainly a compliance-driven process, but rather one that can enable service delivery by government. So can make sure that every school or every health center actually has the resources that it needs to serve the people, which necessarily means that it is not so much top-down as something that the service center and the local government and the national government all do together. The second shift is in how governments actually acquire and fund their digital systems or their digital tools, where we believe that governments really have to invest in developing some of the capabilities in-house, not necessarily to be able to design tools, but at least to be able to better evaluate whether the tools that they are getting are working in the way that they want. And to reduce some of the information asymmetries that they currently face when they go to the market and try to get some of these systems. So really having a team within your own ministry or somewhere within the government that can speak with the industry, that can speak with the vendors and have a more intelligent and informed conversation will help you get systems that are more fit for purpose. And the third shift is just in terms of the technology approach. So at this point of time, the software industry basically has moved to using microservices, has moved to using modular platforms, has moved to using open source software. Those changes are finding their way into government, but still relatively slowly. And we think that needs to be accelerated. So if governments can actually take to using more modular and interoperable ways of doing things, what sometimes today is called digital public infrastructure or DPI, if they can adopt that approach as well, then they will reduce some of the fragmentation and the duplication that countries face today.
You need champions when it comes to this change, right? Like it's a big change both from top down and from bottom up, right? Like it's, a lot of people will be like, oh, does going digital, does embracing AI, does using data science make me irrelevant? I actually think it's the opposite. It's like, how can I be better given that I've moved to digital, given that I have, I'm using data science to help me do a lot more predicting. So that I think that's where government and political leaders would definitely do well, because not only does it then give them a tool that they can say, look, we're trying to serve the public a lot better, but also to be like, when we do serve the public, it makes it easier for you to hold us accountable for the promises that we were making at the time. And you can actually put your finger on the things that you've done, and it's much easier to track where your changes and your impacts are in the system.
Across Anglophone Africa, a clear pattern is emerging. Different countries, different systems, but one shared direction: stronger financial transparency through digital transformation.